After platinuming the Spyro trilogy, I decided to continue my descent into reliving childhood memories with the OG Ratchet and Clank. Meet Ratchet, meet Clank, Clank crash lands on Veldin, I tutorial my way through the planet, Ratchet and Clank team up, I then blast off to save planets from being harvested by Chairman Drek for a new mega planet. Oh, and maybe Captain Quark will help if I ask really nicely. Maybe. Quick word on how I'll be playing this. Bolts are the currency of the game, and I will be as stingy as possible in terms of buying stuff. I'm going to try my best to conserve ammo early on in the game because the wrench is OP but pulls off pretty hard, and I'll only buy things I absolutely need. Starting on Novalis, I save this old man from robots and earn an info bot, basically coordinates to another level. I continue exploring and bomb this wall for the first of 40 gold bolts. I will point out everyone because it honestly makes nice B-roll. One wall jump sequence later for another gold bolt. And oh look, the plumber's back. And I get an info bot from him as well. Next stop, Kerwan, massive city. I buy the blaster here, it's the only weapon that's good for the entire game. I buy Clank a glow up in the form of the helipack, and it's time to start thinking about skill points. There are 30 in the game in total, I would need to get every single one. The first one in the game is landing between Owl's legs here. I do a long glide towards the statue and eventually get to the legs for striker pose. I carry on going through the planet, I get this gold bolt here at a train station, and then kill all these enemies on the train for an info bot, very bullet train-esque. I then proceed to complete the Quark training course, it's really just a tutorial for jumping, and I buy the swing shot from his big personal trainer. There's 2 more gold bolts to collect here as well, one near the Empire State Building looking thing, and another sneaky one under the very start of the level, sort of have to just jump down and then glide towards it. Then it's time for the swampy planet of Aridia. I buy the Pyrocita and start using my swing shot in full force. I need to do this last bit here without touching the ground for a non-trophy skill point, and then I grab the Trespasser and the gold bolt underneath. There's also this platforming bit near the swing shot course that I need to complete. At the end of it is this nice stretch jump gold bolt over a swamp that I definitely get right first try. And after that, I meet Space Jerry Maguire. That reference is probably going to go over a lot of people's heads, who wants me to win a hoverboard race. But in order to win a hoverboard race, I need a hoverboard. Luckily, Space Tony Hawk is also here, and he wants protection, so I kill a bunch of innocent sand sharks with the Pyrocita I bought earlier. Next up, the foresty world of Eudora. I got the gold bolt early on in this level by boost jumping. And then there was this jumping sequence that was fairly fun when I wasn't failing it and falling to my death. You know how it is. After getting to the end, I scared the crap and the info bot out of this guy, and then continued through the level. I found this spot here and started shooting at vehicles with my blaster, and on the 10th one I got the Vehicle Bombardier trophy for completing that skill point. And then finally I got myself the Suck Cannon, also known as the Big Suck, for very sucky. At the BTS, no, not the K-pop band, but the blog Tactical Station, I bought the Taunter, which is situational, very situational in fact, but an incredibly important weapon all the same for some of the things that I need to do. These medium-sized aliens were pretty tough, and I struggled to keep to my don't use much ammo policy when dealing with them. In fact, I did die a couple of times when trying to deal with 2 at once. After finally dealing with them, I got this gold bolt in a sneaky side crevice, and after taunting some aliens to death, the alien queen arrived. Now for this boss battle, I can only use the wrench for both her and her ads. It ties to a skill point. Dealing with her was easy. I just did a leap strike, got a couple of hits in, moved to dodge, and rinse and repeat. The ads were a different story though, as they're much faster. In fact, the second set of ads is 2 medium-sized aliens that hit very hard as well. This took me a couple of attempts, but I was too much for them in the end, and I got the Girl Trouble trophy. Getting to the end of this section rewarded me with the grind boots, and then it was time for the first Clank section. Yay! Some platforming and robo-hypnosis later, I earned the Hydro Displacer. I then also helped a warship explode itself and earned another infobot. This infobot took me to Rilgar, which has some very notorious things in it, and we'll start with the notorious Flooding Sewer. Yes, this is basically a chase level, but instead of a big monster coming after me, it's just impending doom through water. Now, I'm sure as a kid this took you a lot of attempts, and it did for me as well. When I first played the game, I actually did it on this playthrough on the first attempt. After that, I bribed this bodyguard and met Captain Quark. Definitely a good guy. Definitely gonna help me. See, he even gave me an infobot. Great guy. Elsewhere on Rilgar, I learned about the greatest weapon in the game, the Rhino, which I won't get for a long time. And I parkoured to this gold bolt as well. I then met this lady who could get us into the hoverboard race. Now, there's a certain thing you can do here with this woman, but, you know, I'm too mature to do something like that. There's lots of things I need to do in this hoverboard race, but the first thing I did was just straight up win it for a Zoomerator to make my hoverboard even faster if I do cool tricks. The next step was to beat the course in 1:35, and the trick to this is to use all the boosts and cut corners with ramp jumps where possible. It did take me a few attempts. I hit 1:36 a few times, but eventually I got in a 1:34.1, which I'm really proud of, which got me the speedy skill point. Yeah, that took me about half an hour, but this next bit didn't take me long at all. What I needed to do was pull off a 1440, that's 4 rotations, while using the 4 shoulder buttons sequentially, not simultaneously, for a twisty McMarks. This took me a few attempts, but honestly, there's this one jump here that makes it really easy, and I got twisted hoverboard. Alright, time to visit Quark's HQ on planet Umbris and see what the big dealio is. All I had to do was survive his gauntlet. I also picked up a couple of gold bolts along the way. There was this one hidden behind a door, and this one also hidden behind a door, but I just had to jump down from the top. And it turns out Quark isn't a good guy. Wow, who saw that one coming? The boss, the Snaggle Beast, is just a super easy run and gun, nothing of note here. I won an infobot, but lost a friendship. But the two of them have to stay together anyway because they need each other. There was a quick stop off back at Aridia so that I could tell Space Jerry Maguire how great I am, and I got the Sonic Summoner in return, which I need for one specific thing. Here at Battalia, I found this here grind rail, and I had to do it without losing any health. There were lots of mines and rail hopping, and it's really easy to mess up. But shockingly, I also did this on the first try for a skill point, but no trophy. Womp womp. There's some other cool stuff that I needed to do here. I wall jumped for this gold bolt. I bought the Devastator, the best weapon in the game, not called the Rhino. I then stretch jumped for this gold bolt and blew stuff up. Eventually I made my way to the general, but I couldn't go any further because I needed another item, but I did get an infobot to get an idea as to where to go. I then journeyed to the fiery planet of Gaspar. I hopped in a turret and blew up a bunch of Blarg spaceships for another non-trophy skill point. I went through the level and continued to blow stuff up for the pilot's helmet. Straight after that, I jumped into this here hidden pit of misery, dilly dilly, and went through this underground gauntlet of non-stop bad guys where I died a lot. I did die a lot. It was really tough. I eventually came up with this strategy of Leroy Jenkinsing and just rushing through the last bit, but somehow it worked and I got the gold bolt at the end. There was also this optional bit where I had to blow up all the Blarg destroyers, and this bit is honestly awesome. The combat's not too hard, the platforming is interesting, and I got to stick it to the Blarg. I'm so sad that this wasn't mandatory, but I'm glad that I had to do it for the platinum. I got the destroyed trophy for destroying all the Blarg spaceships and grabbed another gold bolt as well. The gaseous planet of Orxon next, and this planet is so poisonous, Ratchet can't go in, which means it's a Clank level. Ew, 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 ew. If you want to know why I don't like Clank levels, the platforming is clunky, the puzzles just straight up aren't that interesting. It's a strong word, but I hate this section. Good news though, I did obtain the Magna Boots for Lombax's Magnetic and earned another info bot, which sent the dynamic duo to the holiday destination of Pokitaru. Oh boy, the tiny orange beasties absolutely wrecked me. I used the Pyrocita and the wrench. I tried to not use the blaster much, and the fact that these guys took 2 hits to take out really vexed me, and I died more than once. Honestly, I was completely stumped. As I mentioned, I didn't really want to use the blaster, and I wanted to save the Devastator for the pink octopus brain thingy-majigs. And it took me multiple attempts to even get to the checkpoint. After the checkpoint though, I began to realise that the bomb glove was mega OP for this bit, and I blitzed through the rest of it. I got the thruster pack upgrade for Clank so that I could get access to this spaceship and shoot down a bunch of Blarg ships, making everyone miserable. The resort owner paid me in the form of an O2 mask, and I waded my way through the scenic Pokitaru sewers that I could now access, so that I could fall to these guys multiple times. Yeah, don't ask, I probably did this a bit too early. So early in fact, I got to the end and realised that I couldn't even get the reward yet. Fan-frickin-tastic. With the Magna Boots, I could now make my way back to Battalia, and I used the Sonic Summoner to summon a Sandmouse to destroy all the tanks. The thing was that the Sandmouse kind of got its wires crossed and just kept on shooting at random things, running out of ammo and disappearing. The only way to fix this was to die, it turned out, and that seemed to stop the glitchiness, and suddenly the Sandmouse was useful again. I did eventually kill all 4 tanks with just the mouse in the UFO, but it did involve going back and forth multiple times to refresh the Sandmouse, because this is the only place where you could get it. But when the 4th one went down, I got E-led. Then for the story, I had to shoot down these massive ships and their rockets with this turret, and there was also a skill point here for shooting down a smaller one for another non-trophy skill point. I got the metal detector as a reward, and you know what? A lot of people think this is terrible, but for me, it's not entirely useless. The bullets you can get from this thing do add up. You just have to pay attention for when the metal detector sign appears. Back to the poison planet of Orxon, and now that I have the O2 mask, Ratchet can explore this level. I don't have the Visibomb or 34,000 bolts yet. Yes, I know that's a very specific number, so I can't go left at the fork. I have to go right instead and do this platform bit. This took forever. Enemies here are either tough to hit or just plain tough. Either way, this level requires a lot of ammo, tons of patience, and not terrible platform skills. My style of playing up to now in terms of just using the wrench no longer works. During all this though, I did need to whip out the taunter and lure these enemies into a force field for, hey, over here. I know I've already mentioned it, but the platforming here really isn't an issue. It's just the sheer density of enemies. I eventually, after a few deaths, got through this section at a snail's pace for another info bot. The Clank section now opens up again, and I grabbed a gold bolt here that I previously couldn't get to. From too poisonous to too cold, it's the ice planet of Hoven. And here I had to kill all these poor ankle biters in the forested area for the pest control skill point trophy. Straight after this, I grabbed a gold bolt by wall jumping between a cliff and a moving platform. I then also earned another gold bolt by flooding this cave with the Hydro Displacer and getting access to an air pocket. Following that, I got Clank the Hydro Pack upgrade, which will make underwater sections a lot easier and faster. Then it was lots of platforming, blowing people up with the Devastator, and blowing ships up with this turret for an info bot, followed by perilous ice skating, dastardly swing-shotting, and even more perilous ice skating to help fix this guy's drill for some raritanium. From this same ledge, I shot some helicopters down with the Devastator for another non-trophy skill point. I then Got too excited and bought the Visibomb too early. Back to Pokitaru, and it was time to find and destroy all the crates in the ocean. The Hydro Pack makes this much quicker than it otherwise would be, and after a couple of minutes, I got buried treasure. This was also my 15th skill point, and I unlocked the sketchbook and the unlocked sketchbook trophy. Then it was time for round 2 against my nemesis, the orange spiky things, for this gold. I also took this opportunity to blow up a bunch of ships with the Visibomb for another non-trophy skill point, and I went back to this rando in the sewers and traded the Raritanium in for the Persuader, which makes weapons cheaper. I could have saved some precious bolts on the Visibomb I bought 30 seconds ago, but that does give me the "these are not the droid you're looking for" trophy. Back to Orxon one last time, and the Visibomb lets me blow up a bunch of walls, threading the needle multiple times. I did eventually blow them all up, but I spent a fair bit of bolts getting all the Visibomb ammo so I could do this. Now that I could access the gold bolt, all I had to do was a bit more platforming that definitely won't go wrong, and I got the gold bolt. Now that I have the Visibomb and the 34 bolts, I can go left at this fork and start blowing up some warships super easily. Everything else can get devastated. I shot a scream through this here sniper hole for the sniper trophy, and finally reached the nanotech facility, and this is what I needed so many bolts for. I obtained the premium nanotech upgrade for 4,000 bolts, and the ultra nanotech for 30,000 bolts. This got me hit me more and nano this. Also, my health is now doubled. Expensive, but super worth it. The Altanis orbit is the second space station of the game. I started off by destroying a bunch of cargo ships with the Visibomb, as well as going through this duct to remove this force field for another gold bolt. I then went through the level, collected the gold bolt, and destroyed this cargo ship on the ceiling after getting rid of the final wave of enemies, but the skill point for destroying all the cargo ships didn't drop. I was super confused, but didn't worry too much because I knew I could go back later to the start and see what I missed. The boss here is pretty easy. I just needed to defeat Captain Quark in his ship once and for all in another space battle, which I was pretty good at, and I got all quarked up and an info bot for my efforts. I went out the level, came back, and I realized I missed these cargo ships on the right all the way at the back, so I bombed them down and I got sitting ducks. As for the planet Altanis itself, this is the most annoying level in the game, and I don't think it's even close. First off was the ice skating and magna boot section. Now, as a child, I have vivid memories of constantly dying to this and raging non-stop. And unfortunately, revisiting this level confirmed those memories. I was falling off because of the ice, I was falling off because I'm terrible at magna boot sections. It was a thing. There's 2 gold bolts to pick up though. One is hidden but pretty easy to get to. The other is also hidden and also easy to get to. But for the life of me, I still don't know how I'm supposed to continue on without dying and having to start from the beginning. So if anyone knows what I'm supposed to do, please let me know. I got to the end eventually though for the Gastatron PDA from Steve. I used this in exactly one situation, but in that one situation, it's a lifesaver. I then blasted my way through a ton of robots. By the way, if anyone knows a good way of dealing with these Tesla coil enemies, let me know, because I kept getting hit by them before I could do anything. Luckily though, I now had 8 health instead of 4. I used my swing shot once again to make my way to another gold bolt on this ledge and earned another info bot after parting with some bolts. In the final section, there was another run and gun and swing shot section, but I kept on dying randomly because the swing shot kept randomly disconnecting towards the end, and I had no idea why. The enemies aren't even that bad, so it was just frustrating to have to do the same thing over and over again. There was a light at the end of the tunnel though, the iconic Morpho Ray. Yeah, it turns any enemy into a chicken if it tries hard enough, which is amazing. This all unlocked the hardest swing shot course in the entire game, and as I was doing this, I was destroying these lamps as I went, as there's a skill point for doing so. If I died, I had to start again, and all the lamps reset as well. Incredibly though, I did the hardest swing shot course in the game on the first try. I know. For some reason, I could do all the hard stuff easily, and the easy stuff just couldn't do it. Don't know. Can't help you.
Gold.
Anyway, I got a gold bolt at the end. There were more lamps to get on the rest of the level too, and if I died, I would have to do them all over again, including the swing shot stuff. So I was super careful and got it done for Vandal. There's also a non-trophy skill point up for grabs. I just had to whip out the Visibomb and shoot down some Blag ships. Finally, I bought the Glove of Doom. It's about to do some serious damage. Before that though, I need to go to Quartu, the robot factory planet, and after Ratchet got to blow some stuff up, Clank got to become Giant Clank and also blow stuff up, as well as beating the stuffing out of everything and anything in his path. Immensely satisfying, and I got an info bot out of it as well. There's also a timed underwater section where the hydro pack comes in super useful, where the reward isn't a gold bolt, but a bolt collector, which basically increases the range in which bolts come to me. It's supremely useful for a certain something later on. From Robot Factory to the Gadgetron Factory on Kalebo III. I started with the grind rail section because there is both a skill point and a gold bolt here, and it takes about a minute for each run. I went for the gold bolt first as it's easier. I just had to shut down the force field with 3 switches and then hop onto another rail and grind all the way to the bolt. I got to the end to get to the Map-O-Matic from the Gadgetron girl and used this sneaky teleporter down on the ledge below to enter the Gadgetron employee room for another gold bolt. I then did the rail section again and again and again until I got through it without losing any health for another non-trophy skill point. I proceeded to go through the rest of the level and blew the crap out of everything. The aforementioned Glove of Doom is amazing for this level. It makes the close quarters rooms 10 times easier to get through. As for the hoverboard race, I focused on coming first to earn the Holler Guys. Then it was time to bust out a bunch of tricks and earn a really high score. The placement didn't matter, I just needed to score more than 4,500 on a hoverboard race. All I did was get lots of air and try a bunch of different button combinations by pressing the shoulder buttons sequentially, not simultaneously. This took a few attempts, but I eventually got to grips with everything to earn the Magician Trophy. Back to Quartu, and I went through the Robot Factory with my new Holler Guys. I made the robots feel safe and then completely obliterated them once I got near them. Got through this pretty handily in the end, met Clank's mum who gave me an info bot, and another swing shot led me to another gold bolt. Time for the third and final space station in the form of the Veldin Orbit one. I made it through this underwater electric gauntlet without taking any damage first in about 2 or 3 attempts. The underwater controls seem unintuitive at first, especially with the hover pack, but over time I got used to them, and even though there's a timer, the timer's fairly generous. I just took my time, made sure not to get hit by anything, and I earned Careful Cruise and a code bot. I went back in the course and turned the other way for a gold bolt as well. But that wasn't the most annoying skill point in the level, this one was. I needed to do the entire robot stealth section and take down every robot enemy. Yeah, stealth isn't my strong point, and if the big bots spotted me, they pressed a big red button and then I get gunned down. So I had to take my time and use the taunter to kill the dogs, and then leap strike robo guards when they're not looking. This took me a long time, and I died a few times because I got impatient, because I am impatient, and eventually I took out the last robo guard for a non-trophy skill point. I then got to blow up a bunch of stuff in another space battle as a bit of a palate cleanser, and then took a quick detour and had to do one more stealth section for another gold bolt. Eventually I got through the rest of the station for another info bot for the final level of the game. Back in Novalis, I destroyed a fighter or a bomber with a devastator for take aim, and then had to use the hydro pack to get to this cave and grab a gold bolt. There's a couple of things I could do in the big city in Kerwan as well. I destroyed the Captain Quark training robot for Quarktastic. I also had to take out a blimp here for a non-trophy skill point. Then in Aridia, I needed to take out 3 flying transports with the Visibomb. The Visibomb here though has the shortest range it has of any planet in the game, so this one took me a while. but I eventually figured out that there's these transporters that come in like basically melee range, and I took those out for transported. Back where Space Jerry Maguire is, there's this Magna Rail that I can use my Magna Boots on to climb up and grab this gold bolt. There's another one outside the Blarg Tactical Station, and now that I have my O2 mask, I could go back into the Clank section as Ratchet and pick up the gold bolt. Then on Rilgar, I turned this tank into a chicken for Cluck Cluck. Something that's really interesting here, if you wear the O2 mask, you don't get damaged by the poison that the tank spews out. That's kind of cool. Finally, I headed over to Quartu, or one last time, and used the code bot for a gold bolt. Time for the final level of the game in Veldin, back where we started. The first thing I did was make sure that I killed 10 elite guards with only the wrench by using a bunch of leap strikes. I died once or twice, but the dying didn't reset the counter, and on the 10th one I got going commando. That was the 30th and final skill point as well, so I earned skillful. The Devastator is great for the flying enemies, but the Visibomb is clutch for the warships. Ammo was tight because there's only 20 Devastator and 20 Visibomb max, but I did get it done. I used the Taunter so that this enemy could open up the way for this gold bolt. I then did some easy platforming on this hidden path for another, and then finally I did some more easy platforming on another hidden path for this one. Wait, that's only 39. Yeah, I did miss something during my cleanup. But before I could get it, I had to get to the end of the level and ignore the final showdown with Drek, go back to the airship and head to Rilgar one last time, and the flooded sewer level. I made my way halfway through and then headed into this secret area to the right to grab the final gold bolt of the game for Bolt Commando. As for the final fight versus Drek, it's honestly not that interesting. He's just a damage sponge. It did feel like there were only two useful weapons in this fight in the form of the Blaster and the Devastator, which was a massive pain. Why are half the weapons useless in the final boss? What did I do to deserve this? The Gadgetron PDA is goated though, it just meant that I could reload my useful weapons, even if the prices were a lot higher. Also, the Pyrociter was semi-useful in the final phase against the ads, but I didn't really feel like I needed it. Finally, after a lot of patience and a few attempts admittedly, I took down Chairman Drek and Team Rocket went blasting off again for Drek this. Okay, time for cleanup and the final trophies. In order to do this, I needed to play the game on challenge mode. Everything carries over, the gold weapons are much more accessible now, and bolts from enemies and boxes are now doubled. So it was time to get a million bolts by cheating. First things first, I needed to play the game as normal until I got to Rilgar and reached the area where I could enter the hoverboard race. I jump up on this here box and use the slope jump glitch to boost jump onto this tree, and then spam X while R1 is held down to boost jump again onto this ledge, then hover onto the racetrack, which I definitely shouldn't access. Then I needed to stand underneath these boxes, get the taunter out and hold down circle. Boxes will keep regenerating above me, so the bolts will keep accumulating. But if I put a weight on the circle button and leave it alone, because I'm playing this on PS Plus, the PS Plus service will disconnect me for inactivity. So I also needed to rotate the camera at the same time, so I came up with this ingenious setup to keep the camera rolling. Literally. I left it overnight and the server crashed. But it turns out that I did get the million bolts needed, so hooray! But I needed to do it again because the bolts didn't save, except this time I only needed 500,000 bolts to buy up everything else. This took me about 3-4 hours, but I eventually got what I needed, and I went back to the Rhino vendor and bought the best weapon in the game for Ultimate Animal. It's just a shame that I didn't really get to use the Rhino much in this playthrough, but here's what it can do. Then, back at the Gadgetron vendor, I bought the rest of the regular weapon gadgets for Gadgeteer, and then finally I headed back to Novalis and got the gold version of every weapon for Ratchet King Midas and the Gadget Master Platinum Trophy. Thanks for watching, check out this video that the YouTube gods have offered you.